Welcome back to Capital H. I'm David Mallon, your co-host and head of research for our human capital practice in the US. We're coming to you today from the expo floor at the HR Technologies Conference in Las Vegas. We're at the epicenter of the latest innovation in HR and workforce-related tools and technologies. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Dave Uppal. He is Vice President of Ecosystem at Moveworks. He leads global partnerships and alliances for Moveworks, as well as its in-house services and support teams. He helps customers unlock the full value of their AI-powered workforce solutions. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me on the show.
First off, congratulations. I hear you all won a fairly prestigious award, number 2 on Fast Company's World's Most Innovative Companies in Enterprise. So maybe start by, this is kind of a way to introduce yourself and introduce Moveworks. Okay, so what's so innovative? What do you do?
That's a good question. So Moveworks is an agentic AI platform that allows enterprises to deploy a friendly AI assistant to all their employees that they can chat with to help them find information, automate tasks, and just be more productive. It does that through deep integrations with your existing enterprise systems. So if you think about finding information, you want to pull from knowledge bases, from content sources, repositories, intranets. And for automating tasks, things of all of the systems of record like HCM, workforce management, ITSM, CRM, ERP, the list goes on. And that's one of the biggest things that sets us apart from other generative AI solutions, our ability to plug into so many different enterprise platforms. That combined with our reasoning engine, our architecture, which is kind of like the brains of the operation, it's a combination of our large language models that selects the right systems to tap into based on what the user is asking for. Add guardrails, control permissions, checking for factuality, security, all that sort of stuff. So companies will often start out using Moveworks to streamline and centralize their global business services like HR, IT, facilities, finance. They can deliver a lot of cost savings and a better employee experience.
What's the latest thing it can do?
Well, that's a good question. We've been spending a lot of time investing in a couple areas. One is our Agent Studio platform. We recently released Agent Studio 2.0. This is really the next generation of our extensibility platform. It's really a no-code, low-code platform that allows you to build really any plugin or use case you can think of to add to your AI assistant's arsenal, things it can do. This builds on a lot of the success we had with prior versions of the platform. It's super flexible and powerful. So if you have any custom system that you want to hook into or a custom workflow that you want your assistant to carry out, you can set that up in a matter of minutes now. It's super cool. And then the other big area for us is enterprise search. So search has always been part of what our assistant delivers, but it was really focused on searching through official documentation and policies that's published by teams within the organization, or let's say product specs or something like that. But now we are expanding that to searching all the documents in an enterprise, your personal notes, your meeting records, memos, chats even. So it really gives you one place to be able to search everything across the enterprise. And with that, of course, comes filterability, controllability, controlling permissions of who can see what, and then just the scale, the massive scale. Once you open to that, you're dealing with millions of documents and files, and it's really a great complement to our classic assistant experience, this sort of search UI.
So you all, given where your platform has been and where you're headed, are absolutely on the front lines of, and we have a really good perspective on sort of what is real in AI. Like what is actually working? Where is it going? Where are the real returns happening, et cetera? So maybe let me step back, a kind of big picture view, a bit on sort of trends in agents and AI and so on, whether it's related to employee experience or otherwise. I'll say off the top, I'm particularly interested in how both on the provider side and the client side, how we are, or not, as the case may be, being intentional in the design of how the people and the machines work together, sort of where they intersect, what you choose to give the agent to do versus what you choose to give the human to do. So much of the experience, the employee experience, is going to be about those sorts of questions, how we answer those questions. But anyway, take it away. What other trends are you seeing? And in particular, are we seeing any clients thinking about that design?
Yeah, we're seeing a ton there. I'm thinking about it in general. To your point earlier about trends, I would say that the biggest trend right now is organizations are just heavily indexed on trying to find ROI with AI. The past couple of years have been a lot around demos and memos, as they'll say. Teams coming up with AI strategies, piloting LLMs internally, and trying to build their own demos. A lot of that has turned out to not be that valuable, unfortunately. You might have seen MIT a few weeks ago published a report on the state of AI in business. And what they found was that like 95% of Gen AI pilots produce like zero ROI. There was a couple things going on. You had a lot of organizations that are rolling out one of these consumer LLMs, and those are certainly great tools, but the ROI is kind of shallow. They'll help you draft up some notes or emails, but a quick learning on a topic is great for that stuff. But where the real ROI comes in is when you have a true agentic AI system that can plug into workflows, can integrate with the key data and systems in your organization. And that's hard to do. We've seen some organizations who have built sort of an internal GPT that they've connected to a handful of internal documents and data, and that can make for a fun demo, but when they try and scale that up to hundreds of thousands of documents or have it take actions against those systems, it starts to really collapse on itself, and they see how hard it is to build a system like that. So that's another thing that the MIT report found is when organizations choose to partner with a third-party agentic platform rather than building something internally, they make it to production twice as often and much, much, much faster. So for us, that our ability to connect to a bunch of different systems, both for finding information, taking actions, that's something we've prided ourselves on. And that's what we try to help our customers achieve. And along the way, to your other question about designing the experience, that is where definitely experts like Deloitte can come into the equation to understand an employee population, understand what their areas of expertise are, and how that intersects with what you want to take off their plate. What's repetitive? What is monotonous? What is something that is ripe for automation at this point in time, with where large language models are, with where the technology is, getting the best of both worlds, really.
So a couple things. You mentioned the MIT study. It's interesting, that kind of research, there's new things like that coming out almost every day. And I've noticed the market tends to sort of see whatever they want to see in it, I think is the right way to put it. Because I think what I like about that report is you can dig in and you can see, yes, 95% of pilots are failing, but pilots are experiments. They're not always going to be successful.
That's true.
But the 5% that are actually generating returns very quickly, or as you say, focusing on some very specific areas, they're very cognizant of the human element. They're very cognizant of that. It's almost better that you figure out how to make your supervisors able to integrate this into the daily life of the workforce than it is even just, that you've picked the latest and greatest technology, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of integration points matter. Still sticking with trends though, you've mentioned in a few places things, the tactical side, things like permissions and audits and guardrails and so on. Again, sort of sticking kind of big picture trends, I'm curious how much that is top of mind for clients. Are they thinking about, when they introduce these, what's different about this technology, generative AI and agentic AI, is that it's probabilistic. Like if you asked that agent the same question twice, you may not get exactly the same answer.
That's true.
But I think most of the world is still thinking of this as like a light bulb, and it's either on or off, and either it's working or it doesn't work. Or maybe more specific, recent example, if you asked, pick your 2 or 3 favorite mapping apps on your phone, and you ask them to give you directions someplace, you'd expect them to give you, maybe there'd be subtle differences, but they're going to give you mostly the same answer.
Right.
You ask, the 3 agents the same question, you're not going to get anywhere near the same answer. So that has real issues, I think, questions about, again, both access to data, you're putting about permissions, but also as it raises questions about, do you want a kind of the answer given versus a answer given? I'm just curious, where are you seeing this headed and what clients are asking about?
It is a huge topic for clients. It's top of mind from the very beginning when they start to explore these types of technologies. And for us, it's something that we've been thinking about since the beginning, because actually our platform goes back pre-LLM days when we were training natural language models ourselves with our own targeted data. There were more predictive models, regression models, or the BERT family of models, early days of neural networks. And in those days, things were a little bit more controllable. But I think everybody realized when large language models got to a certain point, they're so powerful in their ability to summarize, to extract information, to generate. And everybody knew this was the future, but then people started to see, okay, or there's this concept of hallucinations, how can we harness these models, get what's best out of them but be able to deploy them in a reliable and safe way. So what we have been building into our platform to address this is just layers and layers of control. So it starts with references. Every answer in our platform that's provided by the assistant has a reference attached to it. So you can go and verify, okay, this is coming from a particular document, my benefit leave policy. I can access that and see exactly where this answer is coming from. On top of that, when the answer is summarized, it's run through, and goes back to what I was saying about having a collection of language models playing against each other even sometimes. The answer, once it's generated, it's run through and saying where one model, the only task it has is, does this answer line up with what the reference is I'm including here? So having those layers of factual correctness, it really helps to kind of reduce and eliminate hallucinations in our case. That's where deploying in an enterprise context, you have to really be a little bit more conservative about what the model is able to answer. It's trained to not answer something it doesn't feel confident about. If it doesn't have the answer, don't just go ahead and try and make something up that sounds correct. You can't do that in an enterprise context. We do allow organizations, sometimes they want to access a more free-flowing language model, but it's always behind a button or a question from the assistant. I can just do this for you.
We can let you out into the wild, but be careful.
And know what you're getting into.
Yes, okay. So maybe that's a kind of transition to a set of use cases where you probably do need a greater degree of control. I saw that in July, you announced that you have crossed the FedRAMP authorization process. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, this is actually part of a long journey that we started probably, I think 4 years ago now, where we started building on our Gov Cloud. As you know, these things, there's so many levels of certification when it comes to serving the government, and we've been kind of knocking them off one by one over the years. And that's really paid off. It's been a gradual journey for us. We started working with a lot of government contractors, federal contractors who are sort of adjacent to the government. They have their own layers of security requirements and controls, and also local governments. So we've learned a lot along the way to be able to achieve this level of certification. And the timing is great now for us. You might have seen, I don't know, it was a couple months ago, the federal government recently released their AI action plan, which is they're really looking to position the U.S. as a global leader in AI. And one of the key components of that plan is adoption of AI within the U.S. government itself. So we're really excited to work with agencies to help ensure this kind of mission readiness and increase productivity. Everybody wants to see our government be more efficient, more powerful, and we're really excited for that. And your question about how do we serve these organizations, I think on the one side of things, we're super ready for the complexity of some of these organizations. A lot of them are running legacy technology, custom systems, and these can be challenging to integrate with, but something we have a lot of experience doing. So that's something we feel confident about. And then when it comes to these requirements of factuality, correctness, and safety, these are top of mind, and we've got people who are on our team who are just dedicated to those types of requirements within our platform. So something we're really excited about taking on and can't wait to get it in the hands of all sorts of federal agencies.
I'm sure our listeners also are probably at this point wanting to kind of hear, okay, well, that sounds all great, but maybe how is this really played out? So if you could share a client example or two or a story too, and I know you said we've worked together, or Deloitte, our human capital practice, worked closely with you all. Where have we seen success together?
Yeah, we've been collaborating now for a little over a year, I would say. It's really a match made in heaven. We have the technology, of course, the platform, but Deloitte, you have deep expertise in human capital, digital workplace. It's been built over decades, and just a really intricate understanding of the workflows and the processes involved in an enterprise. And you know how to help clients achieve value and ROI from their AI investments, regardless of what the platforms they are, the investment. Deloitte has a bunch of accelerators I've had the pleasure of sort of witnessing in action, help clients define and prioritize AI opportunities, which is something that it takes so much to really understand, get people on the same page. What are the opportunities we're going after here, and what can we achieve? And that becomes sort of the building block for their roadmap and business case to drive towards results. And then, of course, if a client were to choose Moveworks as their platform of choice, Deloitte has the capability to implement our platform and build on top of it to achieve all those opportunities. I've been super impressed to see how quickly Deloitte has built a strong bench of folks really across the globe who understand our platform and know how to get the most out of it. It's pretty cool to see. So when it comes to, you were asking about joint successes. One client I would highlight, a great example is Johnson Controls. They're a Fortune 100 company, one of the largest building solutions providers. I think they're involved in like 90% of the world's most iconic buildings. They've been facing challenges just modernizing their HR processes. This is going back, I think, a year and a half plus. And their journey started when they were trying to understand how they were spending their time. And they found that they were doing a lot of operational work, just responding to inquiries. They weren't able to do sort of the more strategic thinking and planning for their organization. So that forced them to rethink their processes. They decided to partner with Moveworks to launch an AI assistant to just start to automate handling those inquiries. They called their assistant Omni. And I think now all 100,000 of their employees go through Omni for any HR related request. And it can pull the right information, automate the requests like booking time off, benefits inquiries, employment verification letters, all that kind of repetitive stuff that their HR operational teams were involved in. I think in the first 10 months, they said they had over 120,000 questions answered, 400,000 interactions. It's been such a success that they want to do more with the platform. Deloitte's expert developers who have built such capability on the Moveworks platform, they've been helping build more agents and plugins on top of our agent studio to interact with systems like Workday, ServiceNow, recruiting systems, anything you can think of. So it's been a real great success for both of our organizations, I would say.
And I'm curious to see where, just even related to the questions we've already talked about, where that heads into the future. Sort of how does the agent move beyond just answering those tactical operational things to actually playing more even valuable roles in their workforce? It's interesting.
Yeah. Well, a couple things that I'm really excited about we're going to be rolling out in the next several months or so. One is ambient agents, this concept of agents being proactive and not waiting for you to chat with them to ask for something, but responding to triggers in your environment or just doing things on a particular schedule, scanning for updates for you and thinking on your behalf, like, oh, should you do this? Or here I would suggest drafting up a note to XYZ or things like that. So that's really cool. And as well as being that sort of companion along a process. I think Deloitte's really good at articulating these journeys, these hire to retire, onboarding type journeys. And I think one of them we were looking at the other day with a client, they want to be really ambitious about their recruiting is always a big topic for them. They've got a lot of turnover in their organization, always needing to bring in seasonal workers. So when they post a job, they do it so often, some of it's repetitive. So an agent can help see, okay, previous job postings, these were some of the parameters that you included, this is the salary, whatever not. And in other cases, it can leverage kind of general knowledge to draft up a job description. And it can be sort of a long-time companion instead of a more transactional back and forth. So I'm really excited about that.
You mentioned a second ago in talking about intersections with other systems, ServiceNow.
Yeah.
Maybe before we leave, just give us a sense of where things are at. Clients on both sides, what can they expect?
Yeah, ServiceNow's intent to acquire Moveworks, that was announced about 6 months ago now. We are still under regulatory review, really towards the final stages, getting towards the final stages of the process, I would say. ServiceNow said that they're hoping that our merger closes by the end of this year or early next year. I think it's really a great pairing, honestly. They have built so much capability over the past decade plus as not only as a system of record, but an orchestration platform, able to execute workflows across all the different silos in an organization, all the different departments. And over the past few years, they've built some amazing AI capability across those workflows, particularly when it comes to helping the subject matter experts who live inside their platform, like service desk agents, workflow developers, operational folks. And they saw Moveworks as a great complement to that because we've built our AI system for the average everyday employee. In the enterprise, they need to interact with these services and workflows. So they have this vision. ServiceNow has this vision of being the AI control tower for the enterprise. That's what they call it. And Moveworks is going to be the employee-facing front end for that, the entry point to the enterprise. There's, of course, our capability to integrate with all sorts of systems across the enterprise. That's really another area of focus for ServiceNow, to be able to serve as this orchestration layer across every business system, all these different systems of record. And Moveworks is a great platform to be able to do that. So Moveworks, as I said, we're going to retain our brand. It'll be Moveworks by ServiceNow. We'll retain our organizational integrity, our product roadmap. So It's ServiceNow's largest acquisition to date. Some of the other ones have been a little bit smaller. They've been able to sort of roll them in rather quickly. They see Moveworks as really strategic, as driving the AI strategy for the whole company. And something that I think we're all really excited about, just having the power of ServiceNow, the platform behind us. So,
okay. Well, we'll start to wind up there. Before we go, if a listener today is in an organization that is still essentially on the sidelines, but wanting to get started down the path of bringing agents in to solve problems, just something you'd leave as a, kind of get started word of wisdom, bit of advice.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would just say get started. Don't wait. The technology is going to continue to evolve. It's been evolving rapidly. And I think some folks have just been sort of stunned sitting on the sidelines like, should I invest now? I think the time is always now, because there's all these other surrounding activities that you need to put in place in the infrastructure. For example, getting your organizational knowledge bases in the right place, making sure that you have the right system connectivity. You've got change management is something you're going to have to go through either way, whether you introduce a system now or a year in the future. So don't be afraid to get started soon. And also think about areas where there's real ROI. Going back to that, we were talking about that report. A lot of some proven areas where you can start to deliver ROI are back office functions. Like we were talking about, global business services is one area. It's something that can be very powerful, deployed to very targeted use cases, and then grow from there. Be creative, be ambitious, and take your employees along for the ride.
I love the note about being ambitious. We need more of that. Okay, well, that will do for today. Dave, thank you very much for joining us and sharing a bit of your time and wisdom.
My pleasure.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Wherever you found us today, please do like and subscribe, leave us feedback, or reach out to us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious. This podcast is produced by Deloitte. The views and opinions expressed by podcast speakers and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of Deloitte. This podcast provides general information only and is not intended to constitute advice or services of any kind. For additional information about Deloitte, please go to deloitte.com/about.